Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition. It is October 18th, 2022. And I'm joined by the lovely Brad Wood today.
Lovely.
Yep. Not too much. Just busy. Always busy, right? But we're here for another podcast episode. So, it looks like we got some people in the chat. We got Adam Cameron and David Bellinger already. We got a few other people popping in. So, looks like we should be
busy today. My goodness.
Yeah, busy. Yep. I know. I'm wondering what trouble we're in for, but as we mentioned, I'm Gavin Pickens, so a senior developer at Ortus Solutions, and we're here with Brad Wood, another senior developer at Ortus Solutions. So we want to thank Ortus Solutions, our sponsor, because without them we couldn't make this podcast. And if you don't know who Ortus Solutions are, they're the ones that make ColdBox, CommandBox, TestBox, ForgeBox, and all the other good boxes out there. That's what we say. But there's a few ways that they can say thanks back to Ortus Solutions. You want to give us a list of those, Brad, so they can go off and do them while they listen to us all day?
Certainly. They can like and subscribe our videos on YouTube for the first thing. They can also help Ortus reach for the stars by starring and forking our repositories on GitHub. Gets attention onto our open source projects. We also have that cool little command box module that I think Eric wrote that will look through all your dependency lists and will go star all of the repos for you using the GitHub API, allowing you to be absolutely as lazy as possible. You can also subscribe to the podcast on your podcast apps. Leave us a review. You can sign up for a free or paid account on CFCasts, which is releasing new content every week. You can also check out the Box Life store where you can get t-shirts and hats and bags with cool, funny box logos and things on them. My favorite one is the command box one that says the server is up. And then, of course, you can go buy our Ortus Book 102 full box HMVC quick tips and tricks on Gumroad.
Yep, so a lot of cool stuff there. And then we also want to thank our Patreon supporters, because without them we couldn't do this. And we want to just let you know that we have 42 amazing Patreons providing 100% of the funding for this podcast, but thanks to them, we're also funding 33% of the way of funding the ForgeBox IO hosting. So a lot of cool stuff with ForgeBox, our package management setup, and all the cool S3 storage and everything. We work hard to keep that available to everybody, because that's one of the only downsides of being successful, right, Brad, is if something goes wrong, there's way more people complaining about it now. So
that is correct. Used to be ForgeBox could fall off the internet and nobody would notice, but if ForgeBox blips for 20 seconds now, people are like, my build failed. So, yep
exactly. So
it's people
good.
using it.
Yep, and then it looks like we got a few more people saying hi. So John Barrett, aloha from Hawaii. Life Vision Quest, asking if we make gift boxes. Nope. Who's Life Vision Quest? I wonder if you got a real name. And then Calvin Stetton's there as well. So looks like we got a good group in there. So let's get into our announcements. And so first up, I just wanted to give you guys an update on me trying out GitHub Copilot. So Adam's in the chat. I wonder if he can tell us what he thinks of it. But GitHub Copilot, I've been using it after the Working Code podcast. Have been talking about using it. Adam and Carol both use it, and then Adam Cameron talked about it in the Discord about it too. So I thought I'd try it out yet. It's not very CF smart, but I'll tell you what, it does do a lot of cool things. So obviously on the JavaScript stuff that I was doing, it worked really well. But even if I started doing something repetitive, like I would start typing a line, and if I did just something just above it and change a couple of characters, it would realize, oh, everything else is the same except these characters. And it saved me quite a lot of work. I was pair programming with Scott Steinbeck the other day, and we were doing some stuff, and it was like, ooh. So I am enjoying it. It's kind of fun. I don't know if I'll probably try it for a little bit, even when it starts to become paid. But it's definitely winning me over. It's giving me some good ideas. So if you guys haven't tried it, there is a free trial. So github.com/features/copilot. Give it a whirl. I think it's pretty neat. So And Adam says it makes him feel stupid when he's doing the Kotlin stuff. Apparently, he writes 50% of his blog post now. So, yeah. But hopefully, if more of us use it with Cold Fusion, it'll learn a little more, and then it can be smarter. But next up, Brad, we have a little thing. So it's October. That means two things, right? It's Breast Cancer Awareness Week and Hacktoberfest. And I've got the Hacktoberfest shirt, which is kind of pink, so living up to both of them at once. But you want to
Two
tell us
birds
a
with
little?
one stone right there.
Yep, that's what I'm playing. So you want to tell us a little bit about Hacktoberfest and why everybody should be excited about it?
Yeah, so you need to get registered anytime this month, basically. You have up to, until October 31st, and you need to make, I believe, 4 pull requests to any GitHub or GitLab hosted project that's participating in Hacktoberfest. You need to look for that Hacktoberfest topic that's added to the repository. If it's not there, ask the maintainers to add it. And they need to merge your pull request, I believe, by the end of the month in order for it to count. So the first 40,000 participants, maintainers and contributors who complete Hacktoberfest can get either a tree planted in your name, or you can get the Hacktoberfest 2022 t-shirt. So great boon to open source and to give some people a quick and easy way to get started. If you go to the hacktoberfest.com website, you can search for pull requests, for repositories, accepting pull requests, and find something easy to participate in.
Yep. It's pretty cool. It's got a lot of interesting things now too. So this year they've also opened up the non-code stuff. So if you're doing blog posts, if you're doing social media or videos, you can still make a pull request to those repos, telling them what you're doing and provide links to them. And if the maintainer accepts it as a Hacktoberfest-accepted merge request, even though you're really only merging non-code, it still applies. So it's kind of neat. I thought it was kind of nice that they're trying to reach out and broaden the horizons of what you can do there. So Hacktoberfest is pretty cool. And then apparently maintainers get something too. So if you do some work with your repos and you have Hacktoberfest marked as there, and you actually approve so many, apparently you get a little gifty at the end of it too. So I'm curious what that'll be, because I think that's pretty new too. I don't remember that happening in previous years. So we'll have to look at that. So very cool. Okay, well, next up we have some new releases and updates, and we got a pretty good list here. Brad, you want to tell us about the first one? Because this was news to me. Charlie just sent it out.
Oh, I hadn't even seen that myself. So it looks like Cold Fusion 2021 refreshed the installers with update 5, but it says only in one place. I don't know exactly what that place is. Basically, what normally happens with Adobe Cold Fusion is when you download the installer, and let's say update 10 is the current update, the installers will come with update 2, and it's just a documented step that the onus is on you to now go and install the missing 7 updates. And every time people were like, hey, why don't you update your installers, Adobe's like, oh, that's a lot of work. And then it never happened. So the only times they've updated their installers was when they had that SSL cert that was stolen years ago, and they had to re-sign everything. But yeah, it looks like they actually refreshed the installer. I'm kind of curious what prompted them to go through the effort to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good because now if you download the installer, you actually get the latest update of Cold Fusion, not something that's 2 years old and you have to apply a bunch of updates to.
Yeah, the trick is that it's only in those product downloads on the download Cold Fusion section, but if you go over to the refresh section, let's see here. I think he said that there was no zips. So, okay, so just a full installer there. The not good news, there's not zip installers, at least for now. The good news is, installs 5. Not good news, the installer implements Java 11. So basically, Java 11.11. Well, it's Java.11.11, where last week it had 11.16.1.
It's an older build of Java. I wonder if that's because they were testing it for so long, or if that was just an oversight. And leave it to Charlie to know more about all the places Adobe has Cold Fusion downloads than Adobe themselves.
Yeah,
I have a feeling someone at Adobe thought they updated all the places, and obviously Charlie found the other half of the places.
Well, Adam Cameron made a good point, saying you bet they fixed some critical vulnerability. There was a 0-day vulnerability in this update 5, so I bet they can't release installers for versions that don't have that 0-day fix. So by them having the bad installers out, it's probably like a huge security risk.
That's a good point, because anybody who ran the installer and didn't apply the updates would have some pretty serious. There was quite a list of vulnerabilities. Unfortunately, the CVEs really hadn't been put out there yet. They were all just reserved, so I don't know what most of them are. But I was a little concerned by that list. So by the way, the latest version of Java is 11 is update 16.
So that's what the previous version had, or something, or last week's update 5. Yeah.
But I thought you said they had update 11.
Well, the installer implements only Java 11.0.11, while the version available as of the release of Update 5 last week was 11.16.1.
So we're saying the same thing. The latest Java 11 is Update 16, but Adobe is 5 minor updates behind.
Yeah.
Which
seems...
patches, whatever you call them, builds. Yeah. Seems a little odd that they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't incorporate that. Because, I mean, even if they had been testing this version for a while... they wouldn't have started testing all the way back when Update 11 came out. So I'm trying to. I'm using the Java search command in command box to search the Adoptium API to see what versions there are.
Yeah, so you're saying that you can't get them on the trial page or the developer edition, and you can't get them with the Adobe licensing website. But he doesn't have a login to confirm it, but he's not sure yet. But so they're rolling out those versions, and so anyway, so again, Charlie's got a really detailed thing. But conclusion: if you're installing it, it'd be best to use those ones that already have the update 5 in it. You can only get that at the Cold Fusion downloads page. So anyway, we'll put that in the show notes, and we'll get that posted for you right away as well. But
of course, it's also worth noting that if you're using command box, none of this actually applies to you, because you tell command box the magic version you want, and we give it to you.
Yep, for sure.
There's no such thing as installing updates in your command box servers.
Yeah.
Oh, holy cow! So update 11 came out on April 20th, 2021.
Oh, so yeah, it's
pretty old.
That's 18 months old. That's probably why Charlie pointed it out. So
already foul. I can't believe they had a Cold Fusion release with all of those big security fixes, and nobody thought, hey, should we bump the bundled Java version?
Yeah. So anyway, that's, like I said, it's 0-day vulnerability, so they probably got it out quick. But yeah, it's funny that they wouldn't be updating their Java more often. But
some of the people waiting for this release probably wouldn't use the word quick to describe the way it was released.
Okay, well, I don't know when the CVE came out or whatever, because it's a security update. It doesn't have all the other stuff in it, right?
I thought this had things like the query bugs, stuff like that.
No, this was the security update. They talked about it at CF Summit, talking about that this is like they're doing security updates only. Maybe it did have more in it. I didn't read all the detail, but they were talking about separating the security update release from the patches and try to have like a policy for that. But maybe you're right. Maybe it did all come with it. I'm not sure.
Right. I know people were upset the last time Adobe released just a security update with no bug fixes. And I had even defended them in doing that because people want to be able to install a security update.
Okay, it does. Kyle confirmed.
That's what I thought. I thought that's what I had seen. Because last time they released a security update separately, and everybody was like, "Where's our darn bug fixes?" Right? But other people would say, "Quit shoving bug fixes into your security updates," right? Because you break stuff and you do that. And so it looks like they just went back to a combined thing. But
well, they probably had that version 11 because they've been testing all their bug fixes and all their other stuff for 18 months. So they just threw the update on top. But anyway,
I don't know.
Anyway, it's out. It's got all the fixes. Everybody should be happy. Although I did see somebody complaining about something being broken, which we'll cover a little later in the tweets. But I think it was pretty minor. About some XML issue, but I think you tweeted about it with Brian Riley. So,
well, that's broken in air quotes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, next up, we also have a release of Spreadsheet-CFML. So there's other things going on. Version 3.6.0 was released, but also 3.6.1 was released, and so you can find out more on the CFML Spreadsheets website. And then obviously we were talking a little bit about this, like Brad said, the command box images are out. So 2021 update 5, 2018 update 15, and yeah, the there was I didn't read my own notes from last week. The other cool thing is the M1 support for Mac OS, because apparently people were complaining they couldn't run it on that because of the ARM support, but that's there too. So if you want to find out more about those images, including all the things that I was wrong about, there's a link there. And then CBElasticSearch 2.3.3 was released last week, and the big thing is now it has full compatibility for Elasticsearch version 8, as well as maintaining support for Elasticsearch 6 and 7. And so we've got that blog post out. And then
CBElasticSearch is what you use if you're using Elasticsearch service and you want to be able to talk to it from your ColdBox app, right?
Yep. Sorry, I should probably be more clear on that.
Just make sure, in case any of our listeners are like, yeah, I don't know what that does.
Yeah. No, Elasticsearch is a really powerful search tool.
And it's also powering ForgeBox now, finally.
Yes, so you can finally do some more powerful searches, better searches.
We pulled ourselves away from the big old fat like query that we used to use on MySQL, and now it's a proper Elasticsearch, full text search. Nice.
Yep, for sure. And then Fusion Reactor had a couple releases, right, Brad? So, have you checked out the new version? Have you seen the differences with it? Because there's a few improvements and a few bugs with 9.0 and 9.1.
I have not looked at 9.1. I used 9.0 a bit when it came out, and I talked back and forth with some clients that wanted to tap into the log shipping. I don't know if that's the right word, log shipping, but basically Fusion Reactor 9, one of those big features, the ability to take log files off your disks and then ship them off to an aggregate server in the cloud, which is similarly along the lines of what you have with like FileBeats and the log stash and like the Kibana stuff. But Fusion Reactor is doing that now as kind of a baked-in service. But yeah, I hadn't even looked through the list of what was in 9.1. Oh, perfect. One of the things in here is something that I asked them to add. And that was the ability to specify a system property to add additional log files. Because out of the box, Fusion Reactor was only grabbing a handful, like 1 or 2 of the Cold Fusion Engine log files. But if you wanted to ship off, say, like everything in the Cold Fusion or Lucy logs directory, you had to change the setting via the administrator. And so I asked them to add a system property. So kudos to them for giving me what I asked for in a short amount of time. And it looks like the second thing they added was also what I asked, which is to ship a few more of those log files by default. Jesus, they just called us the Brad Wood release.
I know, I was going to say, man, it sounds like they do listen to you after all, Brad.
It looks like just a bunch of little kind of improvements that came back out of their the feedback of their first release. And if you're, again, on Command Box, as long as you're on the latest version of the Fusion Reactor module, you will automatically get whatever the latest version of Fusion Reactor is. It's backwards compatible, and your license key will work. Your license keys aren't tied into any particular version. So if you bought a license of Fusion Reactor 8, it'll also work in Fusion Reactor 9.
Yep, very cool. Okay, well, so next up then we have our webinars, meetups, and workshops. And so the first one, we're going to talk about the new Ortus batch of stuff. So new Ortus Friday is what we're going to call it. So new Ortus Friday, every Friday we're going to have something starting next week. So next week's going to be our Ortus webinar. I'm going to be doing a webinar about stepping up your testing. So that's October the 28th. And all of these are at 11 a.m. Central Time, or Chicago time, as Daniel Garcia wants us to refer to, because that's the only time he cares about. So we'll be having the registration for that webinar out soon. And then the following week is going to be Ortus Office Hours. So Daniel Garcia is going to be host a variety of Ortus people, and we're going to have an Office Hours question and request form available for you to basically put in your put your name in the hat for something you want to talk about at the office hours. And so that way, if you're asking quick stuff, then we'll probably try and get Eric involved. If you're asking something about, CB Wire, we'll see if Grant's available, and we're going to try and bring a couple Ortus people to sort of answer those questions. So it'll be sort of just an old school office hours. We used to do this a long time ago, right, Brad? The ColdBox connection back in the day.
Yeah, Luis called it the ColdBox connection, and we would open up a Adobe Connect room. That's why we called it that. And we would just sit in it for an hour, and people would come chat, and we'd ask us questions and stuff. And then we got really busy. That's back before I even worked for Ortus. That's when I used to work at my previous job, and I was just at the cold box evangelist. But yeah, that kind of faded away as we got busier. But the demand is still there for people just to be able to ask questions and things. So I think it'll be popular for people who want to just come hang out and just maybe a question they've been thinking about that they haven't had the time to go post on Slack. But if they can just jump in the call and they can be like, "Hey, I've been wanting to ask you, how does this work or something?"
Yep.
It should be pretty cool.
Yeah, and we're going to try and, like I said, have the little request form available, so if someone's got a particular question, we can make sure the right person's there to answer it. But also, just, let people, we don't want 25 people to show up, all have questions, and not be able to answer them all. So if you get them in there, we'll make you top of the list, and we'll sort of work our way through it, or try to do that. And it's kind of like a little intro to what you get with support, that we have some paid support customers where they'll just jump on and, say, hey, I want to look at, setting up some better error logging and stuff. Like, how can I do that? Like a customer yesterday, I was helping him get Sentry set up and giving some tips on how to do versioning for the release numbers and just different bits and pieces, and that's the type of thing we can offer in office hours, and everybody can learn from that. So that's one of those things. And then the following week, Ortus Book Club. This is going to be a Patreon-only thing. So we're going to start with Uncle Bob or Robert Martin's book, Clean Code. So we'll be sending out some blog posts here with that. We'll send you some links to be able to get the book. So they have it up on Audible, which is really great. And with Audible, you also get all the downloads of the PDFs of the code, so you can look through it. But part of this, too, is I actually want to convert all the Java code examples over to Cold Fusion code examples, so we can have a little Cold Fusion companion for the Clean Code book. So Adam, I've been talking about clean code and all this other stuff. So this book club, I think, would be a good opportunity. And then if you're there, Adam, we can try and convert some of this stuff over to more CFML-ish code for the clean code. Be warned, Adam said. Be warned. Okay,
Sounds like a threat.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the rest of it's about. And then the following webinar will be November the 18th. So that's the following one. And then, and he's saying the code examples in the book are not good examples of particularly clean code. So Adam, there's our challenge then. So let's make a Cold Fusion version that is clean code and usable and friendly, and because not everything is Java quality. Cold Fusion has some dynamic properties. That means we can do some cool stuff. So we'll have to, make our version of it that makes sense. So that's part of the book club. So that'll be Patreon only. So if you're not a Patreon, go sign up, and then you can be involved with the book club. So once a month we'll be meeting for that. And again, these are the normal ones. And then because of Thanksgiving, there will be no Coding with the Kiwi in November. But we'll be back in December as we start up with Office Hours, Book Club, Webinar, and Coding with a Kiwi. So what else do we have, Brad? We've got some a new CFUG. It looks like it's based in India. Do you want to tell us about that?
I can. I'm fixing a command box bug right now that I found while using the Java search command earlier. Well, I was using the Java search command to look for the latest versions of Java, and I found a bug, but it's fixed now. So back to the show notes.
Yep. So
yeah, I saw the CFUG announcement. Let's see. Got to scroll all the way down in the show notes here to find it.
Yep.
Where is it?
So so basically they reached out to a lot of people. Well, they reached out to me, so I assume they've got a big net.
I got contacted as well. I feel bad I hadn't replied yet, but
yeah, I told them that I'm pretty busy trying to catch up from all these conferences, but I'd make myself available in the future. And so Ray's doing his document services API and you talk, and so that's going to be this Thursday, and it's 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So that is actually 9:30 a.m. Central Time. So that's just that's just remember when you see these times. I put the CDT time next to it, but I always find it weird because it's like a half-hour difference too. Like they've got half an hour daylight savings time, kind of.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, it was basically 1 month ago. I had gotten reached out invite for a CFUG Tech Talk Bangalore Cold Fusion User Group. Is what the one you're talking about?
Yeah, and that's they just call it the CFUG Tech Talk.
Haya is the event coordinator. I didn't recognize the name right off, but I think that's great.
Yeah, and so they're trying to reach out and get more content, in an Indian time zone for a lot of Indian developers, and there are a lot in India developing Cold Fusion, so that's pretty neat. hopefully we'll get some of the Adobe developers in there too, right? So they can learn how Cold Fusion works. Sorry. The engineers are Java
Gavin.
developers, so we're always teasing them like, well, that might work in Java, but in Cold Fusion we like to do it this way. So
Well, Luis actually had a ColdBox training in freaking Bangalore, just showing just Wirebox and Command Box and modern Cold Fusion, and he was unable to get a single Adobe employee to attend it, literally in their home city. So
yeah, pretty rough. So we also have CF Hawaii has their CFUG, so Cold Fusion Builder for VS Code by Mark Takata. He's going to show us how to use that, and that's going to be Friday, October the 28th at 3 p.m. Pacific time, so 3 to 4 p.m. And so Mark's going to come in and talk about the new Cold Fusion Builder extension for VS Code and talk about stuff like access built-in IntelliSense, code completion, semantic code understanding, code refactoring, looking at security vulnerabilities and how to maintain the integrity of your code, etc., etc. So lots of cool pieces in there. And so if you guys haven't tried the VS Code, or maybe you haven't got it working yet, because I know a few people have run into some issues, maybe you could jump into that one, and maybe Mark can try and help get that up and running. So yeah. And then we got a couple from Adobe coming up as well, Brad, right?
according to the show notes, we do workshops and webinars. We have on Wednesday, November 23rd, building native mobile applications with Adobe Cold Fusion and Monaco.io by Mark Takata. All right. And then December 22nd, that's pretty close to Christmas. I know it's hard to get people out to something when you get too close to Christmas because everybody's gone. But a winter holiday special, a preview of Cold Fusion 2023, also by Mark Takata. So
Yep.
it's pretty cool. There's also a full list of all these recordings, I believe, on, is it meetups.adobeevents.com/Cold Fusion?
I'm posting it right now in the chat. And
Weird. I expected it to be meetup.adobe, but it's meet us. Wow.
There's probably is a meetup.adobe.com somewhere.
It's a pretty creepy stock photo. It's like a dude stalking me and they're stuck. Oh, closing that tab is weirding me out.
Too funny. Okay, well, next up, we have our CFCasts, and we did mention earlier that CFCasts is our, amazing content library of videos for all your CFML needs. There's a lot of OO stuff. Nolan Irk did a great series on that. A lot of
that means
stuff.
When you watch it, you'll go, ooh. That's the OO stuff there.
That too. But as you mentioned, we do release content every week usually, but we've had a couple weeks off of all the conferences and everything. But we do have all the ITB videos up there for those who are ITB ticket holders. We are still releasing the ForgeBox module of the week and the VS Code hint tip and trick of the week videos, so they're coming out. And I have been working on my series, so boxifying a third-party library from Gavin, and Eric's been working on his ColdBox Elixir stuff. Daniel's going to be working on a Getting Started with Content box very soon. And then in December, we'll be releasing all those ITP videos for all of those who are not ITP ticket holders that have a paid subscription. So there is content coming. There'll be more very soon. But we're going to get back on the releases. Sorry, everybody, but the conferences just blew out all of our budgets. We've got lots of client work to catch up on, so we're working hard on that. But hopefully those videos are keeping you busy. So next up, though, we have our conferences. And so there was a couple last week. Did you catch any of these, Brad? Or are you too busy trying to catch up on everything else, too?
No, I did not. I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce this first one. Is it ViteConf?
No, it's ViteConf. Yeah.
What? I was thinking like Vegemita Vitamin or something. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, no, it's ViteConf. So Vite's the builder that they use for Vue now and everything else. It's a competitor with like ES Build. So it's not built in JavaScript. It's built, with like a actual efficient language, and so the builds are crazy fast. Everything's just lightning fast. So ViteConf is its own conference about it. So it's going to leave Webpack and all those in the and basically in the dust. So ViteConf, if you want to learn more about that, but that's what they're using now for like almost everything. So
but that's going to be if you're into Vue.js. Am I understanding correctly?
It doesn't just do Vue. It does a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So
I'm trying to figure out who the target audience, because I'm reading their website, and like it doesn't actually tell me what the crap the conference is about. All it says is making web development instant. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so basically all the all the front end build tools. That's what if you use a JavaScript framework that you have a build tool like Webpack or ES Build or whatever else. you can use Vite, and
I
Vite will
see.
make
So
your
this isn't
life
really
instant.
about any specific front-end framework then. This is just
No, but
looking to
it's
replace. Okay.
yeah, it's very big in the Vue community because this I think the guy Evan who built Vue took and basically has been building Vite. I don't know for sure exactly, but I know he was one of the key speakers there and everything. So
Uh,
um, pretty interesting. And then Microsoft Ignite happened last week as well. So if ignite.microsoft.com and learning a little bit more about the latest innovations and stuff like that. So it's an interesting little conference. And then coming up soon, this is something that I need to go to. Brad, are you going to go to the AWS Awesome Day? I know we use
yeah.
AWS all the time, but sometimes I still feel like I have no clue what half of it does.
Oh,
And
that's for sure. I like what they did there. AWS. They turned that into awesome. How many years did it take someone in the marketing department at AWS to be like, our acronym is the first few letters of the word awesome?
yeah, for
Pretty
sure.
funny.
I
So
know.
is this focusing on the web services stuff?
It's a very
AWS?
3-hour AWS cloud training, like get started sort of setup,
You
So,
know what? I've been to two different like cloud training, get started, setup sort of stuff before, and I sort of hated both of them. One
well,
was IBM specific and one was Red Hat specific, and they
uh,
like instantly wound up off in like 6 foot weeds of like signing into like 37th CLI tool you had to understand, and I don't know. I was disappointed with both of them. So I don't know. Hopefully this will be better than I guess is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, I mean, the agenda is, looking at the advantages of cloud computing, cloud deployment models, AWS global infrastructure, talking about security, and looking at AWS compute and storage. And so, how does EC2 work, and how do you deal with things like S3 or other scalable and durable, cost-effective storage options? And then databases and networking, and then innovation. And so, this is kind of like things like machine learning and whatever. And then so it's very much looks like a very good summary, but apparently they have some couple of demos. So um, so demos include compute, database, etc., and then a featured story. So I mean, it's just a 3-hour little thing. So it's a level 100 event. So it might be pretty simple for most people, but I'm gonna just try and put it on the background at least, and
Yeah, it says in their FAQs, Awesome Day is ideal for beginners with no prior cloud knowledge. Huh. I'm actually trying to decide if this is going to be targeted at actual developers or if this can be targeted more at like CIOs in the sort of like, use our cloud services little song and dance, but could be interesting, I suppose.
could be
Sounds like it's going
both.
to be pretty high level then.
Yep. I think it's gonna be just like the nuts and bolts, and
Oh, this
I
is
mean,
cool. They have sessions in Portuguese and Spanish.
yep.
Nice.
Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Okay. Well, next up we have a conference that we all want to be attending, and so that one is going to be the DigitalOcean Deploy. Um, it's interesting how they have this at the bottom. Like, I was like, are they trying to do something here? Like
What are you looking at?
on
Oh,
on the screen
I
they got the
saw
little
that as well, and I was on this page the other day, and I was like, I'm confused. Like, did I hit F12 and open up my debugger tools on accident? Like,
yeah.
what
I was wondering
happened?
similar. Like, are they trying to do something funny or yeah? So I was
Wait a
like,
minute. Do you have the plugin installed in Chrome that auto formats JSON responses?
oh, I might. You thinking that's what it is?
I'm curious if something about their HTML is actually just tricking your browser plugin into
Uh,
thinking it's a JSON response at the end.
yeah, it might be. I don't know. I'll have to look at that later. It probably is. It's
Yeah,
probably
there
it's probably
there
a JSON
is.
blob just telling you the date and the link, and it's
Okay,
just
there's a script on line 7 if you view source that um a couple places in the page just had the word false in them.
okay.
And I bet that's actually just tricking your browser plugin into formatting the page.
I got a
I,
lot
I,
of them, so
people in the chat go to the same domain. Do you guys get that little thing at the bottom? Because I
it might be my
actually
plugin.
I
I
think you and I might just both have the same plugin, the same
I thought they were just
plugin.
trying to be like weird, trippy cool or something, but you're right. It's probably just my plugin screwing stuff up. Anyway, the conference is November 15th through the 16th. Virtual conference for global builders, and they've been doing a lot of cool stuff lately. It's kind of interesting looking at their snapshot of who showed up. Like 18,000 registrations, like 1,700 were developers, and like 30% of them were founders and executives. But they have a Discord. You got some pretty well-known speakers in there. I recognize a few of them. But
Adam says it's just us.
oh, see, we're just cool, I guess.
All right. The Chrome plugin we have is, I believe, the one I have is called JSON Viewer. And if you hit an API, it just automatically formats it on the screen. So it does some like auto detection to determine if the response coming back from the server is JSON.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, that's probably what it is. I think I've seen them before. Like, I know DockerCon used to have it where they'd have this little thing pop up like that.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
So
Thought it was some like game or something. They're like, can you have this?
Yep. Anyway, moving on. Into the Box Latam. I know that they're about to release a website for that, so I believe the date is going to be December 7th. So information's coming that very soon. And then coming up next year, I know it's a long way away, but April 4th through the 6th in Atlanta is Dev Nexus. But the cool thing is if you basically buy the early bird tickets before November 20th, you get 40% off. And so, Brad, what are you going to be submitting this year for your call for speakers? Because I know you've spoken to Dev Nexus a few times now.
I haven't even thought about it. There's several talks that I submit every year that they promptly ignore, which are just like, command box deployed Java wars, right? CFML, modern JVM language. They don't really ever care about that. Talks of mine they've accepted were like password hashing best practices, agile development, and what did I do this last year? Oh my gosh, what did I talk about? It was something frou-frou. It had nothing to do with Cold Fusion at all.
It was just kind of. I thought it was RabbitMQ or something.
Well, that's what I talked about at CF Summit. Luis talked about RabbitMQ previously at Dev Nexus. Whatever it was, yeah. The only talks of mine they ever accept just like generic talks, which is okay. But I always give them a hard time because they're all you go to Dev Nexus and they're like Kotlin, woo, Scala, what's up, groovy, and you're like Cold Fusion's like shut up and sit down, So yeah, they don't really care about that, but it's still a great conference, and they have tons of super cool speaker swag when you present. So,
so
I don't know.
Question for the crowd who's in chat: give us some topic submissions that Brad should submit just for fun, and see if some of them get picked.
I mean, I do usually submit like 5 or 6. And I've been hollering at Mark Takano to try to get Adobe back out there. Adobe came out and had a booth several years ago, and Alicia and Kishore ran it, but Mark's been trying to get back into going to some Java conferences, and I tell him like every time, I'm like,
that's a great conference for it.
Yeah, like you want like 2,000 Java developers that are going to all these sessions about these cool dynamic JVM languages that they can work in with their existing workflow. Like you gotta be here. And the thing is, a lot of these sessions, like the Kotlin sessions, the reason they exist is because JetBrains is always some massive sponsor, and with their sponsorship, they get like 3 sessions of their choice. And what do they talk about? They talk about the crap they want to push. So if Adobe wanted to have Cold Fusion sessions at a conference like Dev Nexus, they would just need to fork over money like literally everybody else in the world does, and they get their guaranteed talks, and they get to talk about whatever they want in those slots. Kind of how the world turns is what I found out.
Yep. So more money. Yep. I guess money can buy you speaker swag. And then apparently David Bellinger says you should have have a talk saying how to grow a boss beard. The funniest thing is I thought he said how to grow a gross beard for a minute.
I'm not in the boss category yet. My wife already hates it. She thinks it's way too long. So I don't know. I'm still figuring that out myself. I'm trying some different beard oils. See if I can get it to not be so wiry. Crazy. Those of you not watching on YouTube are really missing the visual of my little brush beard that I've got going on.
Yeah, I've got my little beard. It's doing okay. The wife likes it. She won't let me do Movember with the rest of the Ortus team, shave and regrow. But I guess your wife's pretty on board with that, right?
Yeah, so. I was just thinking earlier, we had joked about doing a no-shave November at Ortus. It would be funny if we made a little, like, site, even if it was just like a little GitHub static thing, and we opened it to anybody in the Cold Fusion community that wanted to jump in and send us the before and after pictures. And just saying, No Shave November could be fun.
Yep, that's what yeah, I think that's the plan. We're gonna try and do that, and gender does not matter. You can send in some other pitches because we don't want to exclude people from supporting the need. But I didn't know where it came from. I guess it came from Australia. That's where they started with that, like prostate cancer or something. From some Australians started it. Interesting. Anyways, moving on. So we also had an update. Well, kind of an update. I guess we say it every week, just in case people care. Into the Box 2023, we have dates: May 17th, 18th, 19th, 2022. So the weekend after Mother's Day. So you can leave your spouse at home and join us for an awesome Into the Box. And then we basically have everything.
Or bring your spouse with you if you want. I mean,
actually, yeah, that's what
John Ferrari did like the last 2 years. He's brought his wife along.
Yeah,
so
it's actually
wrong with that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, if it wasn't in the middle of my wife's teaching, we would do that. Because what I'm hoping is CF Camp is, if things are stable and everything next summer, hopefully in summer 2023, we'll be having CF Camp again. And if it is during summertime, then I can take my wife with me. But because I won't be able to go to Germany for CF Camp without her, I'm pretty sure.
One of the coolest things, talking about bringing your spouse to a conference, is seeing kids bring their kid to a conference. And I've seen that twice this year.
Well, I actually have a blog post that we're going to be writing about that, but you can spoil it and tell them now.
I'm just saying it Into the Box, and then again at CF Summit, ran into people that I knew from the community who brought their kid with them. They're learning to program, and they wanted to get him into some conferences and just get excited about stuff. And I thought that's one of the coolest things ever. They were all like high school age, and they were teaching them how to program and bringing them to conferences.
Yep.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, Saeed brought his kid, and I saw him at CF Summit as well as Into the Box, and there's just it's really cool to get him up and running. We're gonna get him up and running with JavaScript and Quasar. We're working with ColdBox API. It's gonna be pretty cool. So I'll be talking to them more in the future for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's in that conference that Daniel Garcia went to in July. Like the speaker setup was pretty cool, and he took his family. They actually have like kids sessions. They have Raspberry Pis and other stuff and whatever else. And that's what got us talking about. Let's doing a Raspberry Pi workshop or a hackathon on Raspberry Pis at at the Happy Box and stuff. So lots of cool ideas. But they're actually at a water park. Like their conferences at a hotel with a big old water park. Take the whole family. So I might be applying for that one. So maybe I'll do the How to Grow a Boss Beard at that, and we'll see what people say. But anyway, so lots of conferences available. Again, if you guys do want to sign up for DevNexus, you can either do the speaker sign up, or you can get your early bird tickets. But Into the Box 2023, no site updated there yet. And if you want more, you can go to comps.tech to get more information on all the other conferences happening around the place. Let's get into the next thing, though. We have blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. And we already covered the first one from Charlie, so thanks Charlie for that one, about the refreshed installers. And then next up we have a little bit from James Moberg, a tweet. And I thought this was kind of interesting. I don't know about you, Brad, but like we always compare, JavaScript and Cold Fusion, and it was kind of interesting that he had a blog post, tweet about Boolean values in JavaScript and whatever, and what does and doesn't work with Cold Fusion versus JavaScript. So he found this little article. So if you guys are transitioning to JavaScript from Cold Fusion, the 2 ways to convert values to Boolean in JavaScript. They have them right here. And it also sort of shows you like, okay, which methods work, which methods don't, what are falsy values, and so using these different things on falsies, explaining how they work. And then the interesting is if you have a false in quotes, that screws you up, because in Cold Fusion it'll coerce that, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to watch for that. So I told James I expect a blog post comparing these methods in Cold Fusion and JavaScript, and he says he's busy, but I'm sure he'll get to it eventually. He's got a deadline. So, but I thought it was just a cool little tweet. So, what do we got up next then, Brad? What's up next on the list?
We have a blog post from Julian Hallowell adding validation dropdowns to your spreadsheets with CFML. I didn't actually even see that one yet.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. Like, he's doing quite a lot of work with this Spreadsheet-CFML.
Interesting. So I'm curious how the compatibility is with non-Microsoft Excel libraries, or if this is only something that works in Excel.
Yeah, I wonder if it works in Google Sheets, huh?
Yeah, I mean, because I've worked with adding like drop downs into stuff, but never in any kind of spreadsheets I've tried to, automatically generate.
Yeah, so
And I don't really know how they're stored behind the scenes.
So new data validation, and you give it the cells with the values, and then you.
He's actually got screenshots from LibreOffice in here, so I guess that answers one of those questions.
Oh, that's cool.
Anybody remember back when that used to be called Star Office, like in the late 90s?
Oh, it did? I never heard of that. I heard LibreOffice, but not Star.
Yeah, I think the very, very first version of it was Star Office, and I don't know who all forked from who. They had a really cool but at the same time dumb feature that would like replace your entire desktop with like an overlay window that had its own start menu and its own icons, and it was all like customized. And I have no clue why somebody thought that's something an Office program should do, but that was back in like 1998 or 99.
Interesting.
And then at some point it became LibreOffice. Yeah, that's for people who do hardcore Excel stuff. That's a nice feature. And that is this specific to his spreadsheet library?
Yeah, that's using the spreadsheet library, and he has
and that's
the
what we talked about
in there.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. It used to be called Lucy spreadsheet, I think, and then at one point he renamed it to Full Fusion or CFML spreadsheet because
it was supporting both of them. I mean, it was supporting both of them all along, but nobody knew that, and so he was like, you keep telling it's like, well, maybe I'll just take Lucy out of the name since it's obviously misleading. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. But yeah, he's got lots of documentation on that wiki. There's like 112 pages or something. So, and next up we have one from Ben Nidell, and so Ben is talking about trying to get a trustworthy IP address. And we've had conversations about this many times. We've had all sorts of stuff going on, but it came up through a pen test, and so one of their systems were flagged for not properly validating the X forwarded for HTTP header. And so, long story short, depending on your proxies, what sit in front of Cold Fusion, the request, the CGI remote value or remote address, depending on if your Cold Fusion handles the proxy headers and whatnot, the IP address may not be the thing that the client actually has. And so there's all different types of headers for different things, and at the comments is always the best part of Ben's articles, I think. Get onto the comments because everybody else has their input. So Charlie talked about how he basically, in 2019 even, wrote this big blog post about it between, load balances and everything else. And then Ben did more digging into it. But it was kind of interesting because depending on where you're sitting, what network you're on, different rules apply. And James even talked about validating stuff based on the proxy that comes in. This is James Moberg's response here. So it's not as simple as looking in the header because most headers can be faked. So you got to look at the header, see what's in the header, and then go look at the IP and see if it's actually from one of the servers you trust. It's kind of a mess, right, Brad? I know when I did something before,
I don't think it's as complicated as people make it, but it really only matters, in my opinion, if you're doing security-related things in regards to the IP address, such as you're blocking access to an administrator part of your site unless they're coming from localhost or an IP address within the VPN, right? Now you have a potential problem because, if you're just logging the IP address in a table somewhere, who cares, right? Hacker spoofs that all day long. I don't care, whatever. But if you're doing something in the application that's like, we're now granting you access because you appear to be coming from our VPN, then it matters. And so the problem, and I was actually, it's funny timing, I was just having this exact same conversation with Luis in regards to ForgeBox and a bunch of CB security enhancements he was making last week. And I was telling Luis, we need to stop trusting the forwarded headers by default in ForgeBox. I know it's convenient. I know most people want it, but it's a potential security issue. And I already
We
ran
should
up
use
against
environment
this.
variables that say these are the list of approved trusted proxies,
Well,
and then we could use
no,
that.
I think that's overcomplicated. The question is, do you
Okay.
trust your upstream proxy? That's really the question. In my opinion, it's a basic yes or no. Do you trust the guy sending you traffic, right?
But
Does the
that's the
headers
thing
he
is,
send,
but if he sends the header, yes. But if someone hits you direct and then fakes the header, because sometimes you have.
then you don't trust the upstream proxy.
Well,
Right. I mean, yeah, if someone's hitting you directly, then the answer is no. No, you don't trust whoever's upstream of you. But I mean, you're the only one who knows your network topology, and you're the only one who knows if you've got like an Nginx instance sitting in front of you, or if you're just a random command box server out in a Raspberry Pi getting directly hit by hackers in Russia. Only you can answer that question.
yeah, no,
So,
you should definitely have input for it. I agree on that. But
but that's the question you need to tell the premise. So command box already ran into this a year ago, right? Brian O'Reilly pointed this out to me. He was at CF Summit. I finally met him for the first time, and he's pointed out several Lucy and Cold Fusion security issues in the past. He does a lot of security stuff. In fact, he presented at CF Summit. And so if the example of a command box was, let's say you're saying lock down the Cold Fusion administrator unless it's coming from localhost. Well, command box by default in the past would just blindly trust any exported for HTTP headers, and just assumed whoever sent them was trustworthy. But then that allows a hacker to say, "Hey, I'm forwarding on behalf of localhost." Right, and then your application goes, oh, okay, here you go. Here's the keys to the city. So now command box has a flag that says use forwarded IP addresses. In other words, if you trust the upstream proxy forwarding you traffic, then you can trust those headers. If you don't trust whoever's forwarding the traffic, then you should ignore those headers. And so that's essentially was the crux of what Ben was describing, and it's what I did a year ago or more when command box when I changed the default setting for that, and it's what I was telling Luis we really should do in cold box, because it's not just IP addresses. There's also the forwarded scheme, like is the current request HTTP or HTTPS, right? So a hacker could trick your site into thinking it's HTTPS when it's not, which may, control what functionality exists. There's this whole handful of headers, and the question is, do you trust whoever's sending you those headers, yes or no? And technically, if you trust the proxy in front of you, they need to also be ensuring they wipe out any headers coming from upstream that are untrustworthy.
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I was
But
curious
yeah,
about that too,
but I
because
mean,
it.
there's a handful of like the isSSL function in Coldbox right now will blindly trust those headers with no regard to whether or not you're actually being served over HTTPS or not. And I don't know, that may or may not be an issue for most people, but we just kind of blindly trust those. And Luis wanted to add a get the proper host name, function. And I was like, you can do that, but you have to know you can't always trust those headers, especially if you're basing things like environment support. And being in a development environment opens up things that are a security issue. You can't just blindly trust these headers if you don't trust the proxy in front of you that's actually sending them to you. Anyway, it's very interesting. But like I said, I think people overcomplicate it. The main thing is that most people just don't realize how, if you're not bouncing your traffic through some proxy like Nginx or load balancer that sets those, then you open yourself up to the potential for people to spoof things. And if your application makes important decisions based on those values, a hacker can screw around with you.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
That's a good read for sure. I definitely recommend go checking that out. Read Charlie's thing. Like you say, it's yeah. Do you trust where it's coming from? And if you are behind a load balancer, you should have nothing else be able to connect to you, so you should trust them, like you say. But some people have backdoors and side entrances, and their IPs aren't secured remotely. So, but speaking of Brian, though, we did actually have a tweet from him.
ooh, yes.
So let me share that one because I think you actually commented on that one, right?
I chatted back and forth with them, though I haven't actually dug in and poked at this. But yeah, so Adobe's. I mean, I understand why. Adobe doesn't like share all the juicy details when there's a security issue, right? Because they don't want hackers to be able to use those. But then people like me who really want to know what the issue was are like trying to figure it out. But yeah, part of the new update that came out with update 5 is there's this new I think is this a system property you have to set? Coldfusion.xml.allow path characters equals true. And it was some sort of protection against XXE, which is something that Cold Fusion's had fixes for in the past, which are external entities that you can bake into XML. And so their bulletin had a note about how if you used like slashes in your XML, you had to set the setting on, but they didn't actually like specify like what the heck they were talking about or what functions or functionality this even applied to. It was just kind of like a random note in the security bulletin. And so people were asking about it on Slack. Brian had tweeted about it, and we were like, well, are they talking about like XML search? Are they talking about XML parse? Are we talking about XML transform? Priyank did eventually confirm in the Adobe channel of the CFML Slack team that they were talking about this setting affected the XML transform function specifically, though they didn't really go into details about how it actually affected it or like what specifically they were um, protecting against.
Yeah, the weird thing was that Brian said that they documented or mentioned it in the 2018 release notes, but not the 2021s. So
That's weird. So I mean,
yeah,
people were saying, well, that appeared that it basically broke XML transform out of the box because the error message said, I'm trying to find the error message that was here.
well, if I go up to Stack Overflow,
Well, I'm reading here out of the Slack. I'm trying because somebody had the message. Here we go. The error appeared to be expression unable to process the XML string as it could probably contain file paths. And that was for an XSLT style spreadsheet passed to XML transform that contains slashes or backslashes. And Brian O'Reilly had said that in the Slack. So Priyank said this change is for XML transform. This is basically the full length and breadth of the explanation given to us by Adobe is that it somehow affects XML transform. So
anyway,
yeah, so I don't know, one of the last comments is someone who's saying, so this basically renders XML transform useless unless you enable that flag. And nobody from Adobe spoke back up again. So I don't know, I don't quite understand. Without knowing what they're protecting against, it's kind of hard to tell, but from what people are saying, it appears that almost any usage of XML transform essentially wouldn't work any longer unless you enable this flag, which
disables the security, right?
why didn't they just turn the function off then and say this is a dangerous function? But I mean, you could say the same thing about evaluate or CF execute. Like, yeah, these are dangerous functions. Be careful what you pass into them. I don't know. I appreciate what they're doing, but I can't help but wonder if they've done something really heavy-handed here. And it sounds like their heuristics are very simple. Like they're literally just searching for like a slash anywhere in the XML as opposed to, something a bit more complex. It's actually saying, are you trying to reference an external entity? So it seems like it might be hitting false positives. I haven't had a chance to dig into it much other than just reading these threads, but it definitely was not really well explained. Just like exactly what it was that they had changed and why and when you would need to use the setting. And unfortunately, the sort of incredibly abbreviated communication is what we oftentimes get with Cold Fusion vulnerabilities. And I understand they don't want to expose information about how to exploit it, but at the same time, like people need to know, like, is my Cold Fusion code actually going to work? Like, what exactly have you broken? Because if everybody just goes and blindly turns the setting back on,
yeah,
that doesn't actually do much.
The thing is, like, okay, you need to know what the risk is. If you're going to disable that fix, you need to know something about it. Anyway, more information would be useful here, right?
Yeah, so, for sure.
Speaking about more information, this is an intervention for Adam Cameron because we want to know why were you writing Cold Fusion writing code on Cold Fusion 5. So apparently,
do that one.
Yeah, apparently he responded to Mark saying, well, not only was someone wrong about something in CFML, they were completely wrong on the version, and so someone's got to maintain the standards.
He was probably going back to figure out when a feature had been added or something.
Yep. So I just thought it was pretty funny. I'm actually curious, what was it about? Yeah. So sounds like Jurassic Park.
That takes a big man to write code on Cold Fusion 5 and admit it on Twitter.
Yep. But I just thought a little humor. But I am really curious, like, what was he like trying to improve?
There we go. He was looking to see when look-aheads were added to the rig extension.
There you go. Thanks. I was really curious, like, why would you want to go back there? But yeah, I guess there's a good reason.
So do we need to ping Abram Adams and ask him when TryCF is going to support CF5s so this can be done more easily? He's gonna
Yeah.
have to have like a Windows NT VM just to run the Cold Fusion 5.
I don't know, I was gonna say, I wonder what it takes to run. Can't run because it was before it was Cold Fusion 6 is when it went to Java, right? So that was pre-Java
Yeah.
times. So yeah, that's definitely a while ago.
Oh, pointed out it runs on Windows 11. Well, there you go. I'm guessing he figured that out just the other day when he was trying it. That's quite surprising, but hmm.
So Mark Takata also had his 2022 recap. So if you want to talk through and sort of see some of the different steps, nice little summary here. And then obviously he's got some slides. And they have been collecting the slides, so I know that we're going to be writing a blog post of all the Ortus stuff for our slides and code for our sessions. But yeah, it was pretty cool. It was a good conference, and so if you want to see Mark's perspective there and see what he has to say about what we had to say, no, just kidding.
You know
Sometimes
what?
I wonder if he listens to the podcast.
I don't know, but I was disappointed. I basically didn't even get to talk to Mark. The conference felt like it was over so quickly,
Yeah,
and I said like hi to Mark like twice, and then the conference was over, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even get to really catch up with him.
yeah, it definitely flies past. And then Mark, who I actually met at CF Summit, was talking about can destructured variables be scoped in Cold Fusion? And so I guess this is a newer feature. He wrote everything on Cold Fusion 21.
This is a different Mark, not Mark Takata.
Yeah, sorry, Mark Brockenstead, I think his name is. It's just Brockens M
Yeah, I've
for
never.
his
It's one of
block.
those names I've never really said out loud. I've always just seen it online.
Yep.
It was nice seeing him there. Uh, I
Yeah.
need I need to know what he means by destructured variables.
Well, so apparently, you can pull apart items out of like arrays. So like in JavaScript, when you import a library, you can destructure it by saying, hey, I just want this piece of it. I just want item one out of this item. So here, items equals apple, banana in the array. You can actually have the array, and then the first element call it item one, second element call it item two, and it equals item. So basically, you're pulling the pieces out of it. And so then if you output item one,
What do you mean when you say pulling the pieces out of it? I don't understand what those words mean in
so
this
it's sitting.
context.
It's basically saying item one equals item, and then the first variable. Item two equals the second variable of the items array, and
But what's
then
the difference?
because you can just put it in a big list. You're destructuring, like you're pulling things out. So say you want to just like this here, for example, you want to just access the apple out of the item struct. And like this is more for if you want to do a mix-in, you have a CFC and a CFC has 25 functions, but you only want the debounce function. You could basically say, hey, I just want to pull in, I want to destructure this CFC, pull in just the debounce function, and it saves them. And you can say just these 5 variables out of the 25, I want
Okay,
as separate
so
variables.
all right,
That's
so all he's doing is saving boilerplate because he could have said item one equals items index one, item two equals items index two, right?
yeah,
But this is just a shortcut syntax then.
yeah. I mean, like I said, they use it
Okay.
all the time in JavaScript when you're doing imports and everything. So you can either pull in the entire library or just a piece of it. And so
Right, that
it's
makes more
so,
sense.
and so
And
yeah.
I think the short answer to this is no.
So I think that's what he said is basically at the end. Doesn't look like the variables went anywhere, and they're not in the local scope. They're not in the variable scope either. He checked the app, checked the server. The application didn't exist in the CF Fiddle.
I'm
Um, he's
I'm
like,
surprised the code compiled
yeah.
in Cold Fusion.
Well,
I
that's
mean, because it looks like you're declaring like an implicit array, for example, and setting it equal to another array, which I would have expected Cold Fusion to throw one. Actually, did you try it on Lucy or actual Cold Fusion?
he was running in the CF Fiddle. So yeah, I'm actually curious.
Oh,
Would that work
okay.
on Lucy at
Because
all or
like I
not?
would I would expect to get an error that you can't have an array on the left side, left hand side of an assignment operator. Um, that would
Yeah.
be an interesting feature. I don't know how often I'd use it, but I understand what you're saying now.
So
Yeah, here we go.
yeah.
Boom. Lucy can't assign value to a built-in function on line 4. That's
Okay. Oh,
exactly
I was about to go in and run
that's
that
exactly
myself.
what, see. So what's interesting is it appears Cold Fusion just kind of shrugged and ignored it and just ran the code and didn't really do anything. Whereas Lucy was like, "What are you doing, bro? Can't do that."
But
So
did it not actually work, or does it work in Try CF for Adobe 2021?
uh, if by work you mean doesn't error, yes. If by
But
work you mean actually destructures the array, then no.
well, does it output the data or no?
I don't think it does. I don't know what it does. It doesn't appear to actually create any variables. I don't know. I think Cold Fusion is just shrugging and going, "That was weird. I don't know what the user meant." And Lucy says, "Hold on, Brad, that's not real." So I think Lucy's probably more appropriate in throwing an exception, but you can't assign a value
Uh,
to an implicit array or struct. But
well, I mean, Cold Fusion says line 8 is invalid, so wonder why.
are you sure? Because that's Lucy.
Um,
I'm running it right now in TriCF, and 2021 just does not put anything.
oh, well, I have apparently another error now. I'm trying to figure out what is running.
If if only
Oh,
TriCF didn't try catch our errors for us. So Adam, Cameron, I know you're in the chat. I don't know if anybody told you, but Abram Adams cracked a joke at Into the Box, and he was presenting, sharing a bit in the keynote about TriCF, about how one of the main reasons that he hasn't changed the error handling in TriCF is just to screw with you. But I wanted to state in solidarity, it annoys me just as much because I don't know how many times I've had to write a try catch and try CF just to see what the stupid error is.
yeah, that's pretty funny. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that this necessarily warranted an entire blog post. I think the TLDR version of this is you cannot destructure things in Cold Fusion. Wouldn't it be interesting if you did? And then like that's it. That's the blog
What
post.
it says you can destructure them, you just can't put them in a certain scope, which is weird because I couldn't get it run try CF, but he said he could actually descope. I mean, he could do it. It does destructure, it just doesn't put it in a scope. I'm gonna have to look into
I
this more.
don't understand then what does it put them in?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like a magic. It's I don't know.
Well, maybe someone can figure out what the heck Adobe's doing.
Yeah, and why the hell did they add that? So
Well, the other question is what it's doing being done on purpose or on accident? Is this like a oops behavior
yeah, we're
or
trying to look more like JavaScript, but we'll just do it weird. I'm gonna have to play
okay,
with that
Adam
later.
says it's a new feature of 2021.
Yep.
Huh. All right. Well, if it works in 2021, then we should put in a Lucy ticket to support it, but I'll have to play around. But
Yeah,
you have
we'll
to be
play around.
careful. You have to be careful on TriCF because it switches out your scopes behind the scenes. So like when you put stuff in the variable scope, it's not really in the variable scope. TriCF does some fine replace crap on your code and it puts all that stuff in a different actual scope so it can keep it out of the real variable scope. So sometimes when you're trying to like just dump the variable scope to see what's in it, you're not actually dumping the scope you think you are. So sometimes I'll test that just on a local Full Fusion instance because I don't trust TriCF to actually just be like running my code without fiddling with it.
Yeah, it's sandboxy. Not really traditional sandbox, but its own little security. But
Well, yeah,
speaking
I mean
of,
there's just a separate struct that declares that it tries to use as your variable scope, but it's a little buggy sometimes.
okay. Well, next up we also have a tweet, and so this was in response to a conversation. But basically, we told them why Wirebox was better, and they should use something like that with dependency injection. And so you explained it, and I thought it was pretty good because you talked about Applebee's. But said with a framework like Wirebox, the calling code doesn't need to know where the dependency lives, how to build it, what initialization args it requires, what nested dependency it needs. You just say wirebox.getInstance foobar, and Wirebox does the rest. Abstraction. And then you said, like when you order a steak at Applebee's, you don't tell the chef, well, you said chief, but you don't tell the chef where the cow lives, what the cow needs to eat, what seasonings are in the kitchen. You just, ask for the waiter for a steak, and the kitchen does the rest. And sometimes they'll even listen to you when you say medium well, or medium rare. But yeah, so I thought it was pretty interesting. And he's like, does it
Yeah,
apply to Chili's too?
I'm actually yes. Yeah, I used to be a waiter at Applebee's, so that's why I always go to that for my thing. I'm actually trying to think. what this original conversation was even about. What was it we were talking about?
He was asking about the new operator and saying, can the new operator with relative paths go into
Oh, that's right, because it was the whole how do I tell
something
Full Fusion
higher? Yeah,
where the CFC lives?
and that's where I was like, well, we'd use dependency injection framework or use a mapping, so you could go up, but he was saying you couldn't control certain things. We're like, well,
It would be interesting if you could do a dot dot slash sort of thing with CFC paths. I've occasionally run into that in legacy code bases. But since dots have meaning, that would be kind of weird. And I'm pretty certain there's logic that like just removes like duplicate dots or slashes in the CFC paths anyway. But yeah, I mean overall the sort of the design pattern that says quit worrying about where the heck your CFCs live is called, dependency injection or an IOC container.
yeah,
Because
version of
IOC
control.
stands for inversion of control, right? Because you wind up in the weeds of having to manually build your CFCs. You have to know where they live. You have to know what parameters they take.
Yeah, highly
And,
coupled.
yeah, so you use, in the past, Cold Spring or Wirebox or DI1, it knows how to build a thing, and you say, please go get me that thing, and it gives it to you.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's a concept that is super common in pretty much every language in existence, but somehow a large swath of Full Fusion developers have really never gotten into using any kind of dependency injection library. So it's maybe that would be a good talk for CF Summit next year. But I
and
think
Dave.
Nolan might have done one on
Yeah, when Dave Bella just says nobody goes to Applebee's for steak.
that.
Why? What's your favorite thing to eat at Applebee's, Brad? You're like, I work there.
I was always just a fan of their boneless wings. And they had like a chicken sandwich, like a chicken ranch bacon sandwich or something I used to get, and their Oreo shake they used to have. But yeah, I mean, I worked with somebody once who complained that Applebee's was like the McDonald's of nice food. He was like, they look like they're nice, and they charge more like they're nice, but it's basically all like kind of this pre-made slapped together. I don't know. I mean, it's not that wrong. But hey, it made me money before I got my first programming job, waiting tables at Applebee's. So
Sounds good. Well, we got to move on, man. We're talking up a storm here, so let's get on with find a job.
sorry.
That's okay. I talk a lot too. I found if Eric's on by himself or Eric with anyone else other than me, it's short. But if I'm on with you or anyone other than Eric, anyway, it's long. So, find a job, and I got the wrong screen open. There we go. So we got 4 new jobs this week. So we got a developer position in India. We have a senior Cold Fusion developer position in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. We have an SE Cold Fusion in Bangalore, Karnataka, and a senior software engineer in the United States. So 4 new jobs there. 142 listed on the site right now. You can post a job for free. Follow Get CFML Jobs on Twitter to get instant job notifications. I know there's a few people looking for jobs right now. There's a lot of them out there, so hopefully you guys will find something. But we also have a couple from, I think Ortus is still hiring in the USA. So if you go to ortussolutions.com/about-us/careers, you can find out more about that. And yeah, we got a good opportunity there for a US developer, US time zones, US payment options as far as work visas and everything else. So if you've got those criteria met, then we want to hear from you. We're looking for some new developers, growing the team. Okay, so let's get on to the next thing, which we have our ForgeBox module of the week. And this one's a new one. And I was going to see if you could pronounce it, but I put it in the show notes so we know how to pronounce
I've
it.
never known there was a way to pronounce that as a single word. I always just read PKCE in my head. People call that Pixie. I mean, it makes sense. I've never heard anybody say it.
Well, that's what Matt Gifford said, and so I believe him. So Matt Gifford has published this new thing.
You know what? Matt Gifford was one of the biggest casualties of CF Summit being way too short. He was at CF Summit, and I literally didn't see him the entire time until we were like literally walking out of the hotel to go eat and go to the airport. And I looked like, oh, hey, Matt, you've been here. How's it going? And we're like, all right, bye.
Yeah.
And that was it. Sorry.
Yeah,
I Matt Gifford, and it reminded me of that.
I went to his session. He was doing the OAuth 2 talk, and one of the things he talked about in there is how the original specification changed, and so there's like he had a slide I think I posted on Twitter where there's the original specification, then there was like one update, and then another update, and then another update, and another update, and then if you're using mobile, you have to do this update, and then it mentioned Pixie. I'm like, what the heck is this? So trying to keep up with all the OAuth stuff. So the Pixie generator is a CFML component to generate or verify a proof key for code exchange, or a Pixie challenge pair. And so this is part of his code. He's doing quite a lot of work with OAuth 2. He does a lot of work with DistroKid and on their OAuth setup, and he does quite a lot of OAuth 2 stuff, so he's sort of the OAuth guy. And so, yeah, this sounds like something I'm going to be using pretty soon. We're going to up our OAuth game and be installing this one.
I'm a little confused on exactly when I'd use it, and I only say that because I've done several OAuth integrations for people doing like single sign-on. I'm working on one right now, and I've never actually needed to. I mean, I see the acronym, this Pixie acronym. I've never actually needed to generate anything.
I believe it's used when you're doing non-private situations. So when you're doing JavaScript, you can't really hide the keys. You can't hide behind proxies like the server side where you get spoiled because our secret keys are secret. We go server, HTTPS, and so yeah, they have a different flow. You kind of use a Pixie instead of the secret key, and that's sort of like a short-lived, authentication key that you'll check on both sides. Kind of like an Authy when you log in, two-factor type setup. It's that makes style sense for mobile phones and stuff.
The server-side OAuth flow, you'll hit like an authorization endpoint, you'll get an authorization code, and then you go get your token with that, but you pass the client's secret with that, which obviously you wouldn't do that flow on a JavaScript front end.
Yep, same with mobile phones that can get, backwards, reverse engineered and everything else. So that's kind of the flow of it. And Adobe apparently is going to be getting people presenting their talks very soon. And so hopefully he'll be doing his one. So that's the Pixie, and it's part of the OAuth 2 talk that he did at CF Summit. So yeah, just a cool little module. And again,
nice. And it looks like this isn't even a ColdBox module. It's just a thing you can just directly create the CFCs and use them.
Yep. So I might have to make a little module that incorporates that as part of my
CFCast
series.
He doesn't even have a box.json. Come on, Matt.
What's he doing?
No, he has a box.json. I meant a module config. If you just put the Pixie CFC in a modules folder, slap in an empty module config, then it would also be a working ColdBox module without losing any of the other functionality.
Yeah, just a module config should do it, right? Because when you install it, we put it in a module if it's the box.json.
Well, but then it wouldn't map the CFC, which is why I said put it in the modules folder.
Oh, I thought you said put it in a modules folder. I was like, you don't need the modules.
No, I just slur my speech when I've been drinking too much.
Okay, well, I haven't had
green tea. I swear, it's green tea.
I haven't had enough caffeine, so my hearing isn't working yet either. So, anyways,
oops, now I'm hitting my microphone.
Yep, for sure. So if
moving on.
Yeah, if you guys want to check that out, I'm gonna post the link into our chat right now, and then next up we have our VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the week. So you want to tell us about this, Brad, while I get my screen up?
Well, the show notes say JavaScript ES6 code snippets. This extension contains code snippets for JavaScript in ES6. Syntax for VS Code editor supports both JavaScript and TypeScript. See, there's no animated GIFs on the project page. How am I supposed to know what this extension does without any animated GIFs? That's the only way to document functionality.
Yep.
Every time I open up a VS Code extension that has a bunch of animated GIFs, all I can think of is a Ray Camden session once where he had an entire slide that said an animated GIF is not documentation.
Yeah.
And usually it is documented down below, but I always just I snicker at that.
Well, I mean, they've got some pretty cool little triggers, but I'm going to have to, completely cover my wall in front of me with all these little cheat code snippet things because I never remember half of these. But, of course,
that is part of the problem. I mean, even just the ones we have in our ColdBox extension and the TestBox extension that have snippets for our stuff, I forget what's there, and then sometimes I'm typing along, and without realizing it, I hit a snippet on accident, and it throws a big chunk of code, and I'm like, no, I didn't want that. No, go away.
I know, and then I'm like, wait, which of the 15 snippet extensions did that come from?
Yeah, because you're typing, and it pops up a bunch of options, and you're like, wait a minute, which one was it that does the thing that I want?
Yeah, a lot of times now I'll push the F1 key to get up my little menu and then type snippet and then look, and you can sometimes get the previews of what it's going to give you too, which is
right.
nice.
Yeah, that way you know what you're getting.
Yeah, but it looked like there was some good stuff in there, like the console log, console info, like CLG tab for console log. Like I should definitely install this module just for saving those keystrokes because, that's how I do it. Just like CF dump, console log. But the funny thing is, most people don't know about all the other different type of console ones you could have, like the groups and the table and the info and the time and there's a bunch of cool stuff inside console alone, let alone all the other things. But they got the array for each, and the for loops and for ends and all those. So, any snippets kind of cool. But to be honest, with Copilot, it just does it for me. So I can just type a little bit and push tab, and then, like Adam said, it makes them look smart or dumb. I don't remember which one, but yeah. Anyways, so speaking of the chat here, dependency injection or whatever is why they wouldn't use 5 tags. Now, do they have dependency injection type stuff in the dev Nexus, or would that just be like too low level? Like everyone at Java's already using dependency injection, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, anybody doing well. So first of all, nobody writes like Java web apps in just Java. They're all using the framework, right? If
like
you were
Spring
like,
Boot and stuff.
I write Java, but I don't use a framework, they would all look at you like you're weird, right? And so they're all using something that has like Spring, just built in, like Spring Boot or whatever Quarkus does for that. So it's kind of just a given in Java, at least from what I've seen, in many ways. But at least everybody's familiar with it. They're not like, what is this amazing concept that creates things for me? I mean, Java developers also use a lot of factory patterns, which is a bit more kind of, it's, I don't know if I'd call it DI. It's a small version of, inversion of control, but kind of, custom factors they like to build. So either way, it's a design pattern most Java developers seem to be familiar with and be familiar with using. But yeah, I don't know. It's a different community, that's for sure.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I just talked about MVC at CF Summit, and it was a big success because nobody was using one. Out of my session with like, I don't know, 150 people or whatever, 4 people were using a framework. So the other 146 were either not using a framework at all, or they were using their own one they made and just didn't know it. So yeah. So I'm thinking if that many people aren't using MVC, then dependency injection could be a huge market. But would they know what it is? Maybe I should say like, yeah, why your code should be more like Applebee's restaurant than a cook it yourself restaurant, or I don't know, something. Come up with your Applebee's saying, Brad. You can wear your old costume, uniform, whatever. Could be fun.
Applebee's. You need to have my 17 pieces of flair.
Oh. Yeah, Office Space. Okay, well, next up we have our Patreon. So, Brad, you want to tell us why these people should, well, why we should thank them, I guess.
Why we should thank them?
Yeah, why should we thank our Patreon supporters?
Because they give us money, like actual money, and it funds this podcast so you and I can have it. And it funds the hosting of ForgeBox.io, the cool Fusion package management site, which Ortus has always hosted out of our pockets. And it just makes people cool because they're giving back.
And they get some other cool perks too, right?
They do, yeah. If you're a bronze Patreon supporter, you automatically get a ForgeBox Pro account, which means you can have private packages and a bunch of other features, additional storage. You automatically get a CFCast subscription along with your bronze Patreon support level, which has weekly fresh content added. All Patreon supporters get a profile badge on our community profile site or community forum site, right? That says, "Hey, I'm a Patreon supporter." And then we also have a private forum on the community website and a private channel in the Box Team Slack where they can ask their own questions in there and get maybe some information that's distributed to them before the rest of the community gets it. And then also they get access to the live streams such as Coding with the Kiwi as well. Kiwi and Friends.
Yep.
And the Ortus Book Club. So there's a lot of internal perks for the Patreons in addition to just the continuation of the podcast and the ForgeBox site.
Yeah, we were even talking about maybe making the Office Hours Patreon only, but we want to open it up to the community first before we do make that switch. But I mean, if it gets too many people asking for too much help, then like if you're not on a support plan and you're not a Patreon, like maybe you'll have to upgrade to one of those. But we do want to try and help the community in general. But that might be a new Patreon perk coming up soon. But yeah, a lot of cool perks there for sure. So I guess it's my turn to mispronounce these. No, actually, I was on them all by myself last week, so I did that last week. So it's your turn, Brad. So go ahead,
Um,
mispronounce away.
all right. So big thanks to our Patreon supporters. The exhaustive list being John Wilson from Synaptrix, Jordan Clark, Gary Knight, Mario Rodriguez, Giancarlo Gomez, David Bellinger, Dan Carr, Jonathan Parrott, Jeffrey McGee from Sunstar Media, Dean Monder, Nolan Irk, Abdul Rahim, Vito De Bruyne, Joseph Lamory, Don Bellamy, Jan Yannick, Laxma Tritohati, Brian Gnadelli, I say it wrong, from Haggerty Motorsports, Carl von Stetten, Jeremy Adams, Didier Lesnicki, Matthew Clemente, Daniel Garcia, Stott Steinbeck from Agri Tracking Systems, Ben Liddell, Richard Herbert, Brett DeLine, Kai Koenig, Charlie Earhart, Jason Diger, Sean Oden, Matthew Darby, Ross Phillips, Edgardo Cabezas. When did this list get so long? Patrick Flynn, Stephanie Monghi, Kevin Wright, John Wish, Peter Amiri, Kevin Vanis, and John Nesson. Whew.
Yep.
That is awesome. Listen to all of these people who are proudly supporting us at Patreon. Thank you so much.
Yep, and one of the perks is supposed to be we read your name out if you're at a certain level. But we've always just read everybody out because we're so thankful. But we are getting to that point, we're at 42 names on that list, 42, 43 names on that list. So I think we might need to...
I used to be able to say it in one breath, but that was a long time ago.
Yep, so I think we might have to draw the line, either a number or maybe end of the year we'll just say, okay, only those people that actually have that Patreon perk get listed off, and maybe we'll just say go to the website for the rest, because yeah, it's getting pretty long. But let's check this chat for any more. So Adam was saying that CFML is desperately need more guidance in that department. I'm like, yeah, but will they listen? And how can you talk to people that are hiding in their hole? And he's like, if you say it often enough, maybe it'll get in slowly. And I linked to a Scott Hanselman blog post about the dark matter developers. It's like astronomy and cosmology. Dark matter is a currently undetermined type of matter. Basically, you can, it's just, you can't be seen, basically. Whatever. So, you can't see them. You don't know the developers are there. We know that they must be there, because other things aren't there. But how do you get in touch with somebody you can't find, or you don't know where they live? So
yeah, and that's the perennial problem is we can post about things all day long on Twitter and the Facebook Cold Fusion groups and the Slack Cold Fusion channels and the Cold Fusion forums, and there's really only a somewhat small subset of the Cold Fusion community that participates in those.
Yep.
Which is frustrating. I mean, that's why you still run into people at conferences that have never even heard of libraries or things that have been around for like 7 years. The closest you get to coming in contact with more of those people is CF Summit, because Adobe has the largest mailing list of people who do Cold Fusion work.
And road shows, the Adobe road shows. That's where I met people that nobody knew who Ben Nadal, Ben Forte, or Ray Campton were. They used Cold Fusion, but they had no idea there were people in the world that used it too. So
wow, yeah.
Like Adam says, most CFMLers show up to work, put in a shift, go home, and get on with something else. I call those the 9-to-5ers. They get up, they do their thing, and that's it. Some other people are lifers, is what I like. Lifetime learners or lifers like me, where I go to bed dreaming of Cold Fusion. I swear. Other libraries are stupid things that I want to do, and
I mean, I don't want to necessarily imply that it's a bad thing if you only think about Cold Fusion between 9 to 5. But even if you only think about Cold Fusion from 9 to 5, I would think part of that should be education and looking into frameworks and libraries and best practices within, your software craftsmanship wheelhouse, even if you do it from 9 to 5. But I don't think the problem is just that they go home at the end of their shift, but it's that while they're on their shift, there's not a lot of self-improvement that goes on, saying, what's the better way of doing things? What am I missing out on?
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah. But I mean, because you'd think people want to improve, right? But then I guess there's a lot of people that they just do their job and they don't care if there's a better way or a more efficient way to do it. I mean, I guess it depends too, because some jobs, the better you are at something, the more work they give you, right? So if you can do something twice as fast, they'll give you twice as much work. So a lot of people
that explains Wall-E in the Dilbert cartoons well.
Yeah. So it's but yeah. So Adam's basically saying they don't care. That's implied nicely. But that's the thing. We're hoping that more people can learn, and that's why we do what we do, because we want to share with those who want to learn, and help everybody improve. And again, we're not perfect. We're all learning, right? So we all learn from each other. And so anyways, with that being said, we've spent 90 minutes talking about this week. So
90 glorious minutes.
So
Did we have an adjective for our Patreon supporters today?
I didn't change it, so it was the effervescent, which is what I used last week. So I just called them amazing, because I didn't have a good one on the top of my head. Right. But the effervescent, that's what my wife refers to herself sometimes. But yep. So it was a good episode, like Adam said. I like the little discussions we roll off into. They take a little more time, but I think that's where everyone gets the real value. It's not just us telling you what you could go find on Twitter. It's talking about it, and maybe sometimes even having something good to say about it, or useful, or, in Brad's case, intelligent.
No, I just like to complain.
Hey, that's important too. Anyways, you guys have a great week. Thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Sayonara.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.